Hey guys, it's Aaron Heiser, Maker's Leather Supply, and this is the first video of the Toolable Leather Fanny Pack. Okay, we previously did a leather fanny pack, but it was made of like soft chrome tan type leathers, you know, something that you could sew inside out and turn it right side out. Lots of curves and angles. Anyway, we have come up with a pattern for a toolable one. So this is the first video of the build of that, and it is actually going to be just the tooling part. Okay, so I've already tooled the lid. All right, the tooling pattern for the body is very similar, of course, because they have to match. But anyway, I already tooled the lid so that I can kind of point at things on it while I go about tooling the body. So this is basically just kind of going to be a step-by-step how-to on how I do tooling. You know, everybody's little style is different. Some people do this first or that first or whatever. So basically what I'm going to do is I'll start a step, I'll explain what I'm doing, things like swivel knife, and then of course as I'm done with the swivel, or as I'm swivel knifing all this, you don't have to watch me, we'll skip ahead. So that being said, that is the first part. We're going to swivel knife it. Now my pattern, as you notice, it looks like it's drawn on the leather. I used my laser and just etched it on there real fast. It basically saved me a couple of hours of tracing. I'm a very slow tracer. Anyway, I did that for that reason, and then the other reason is it makes it to where the camera can see my lines a lot better. Because of course, you know, this whole thing, I'm doing it for the YouTube video. I'm not doing it to sell, or, you know, I'm sure Janie Sue will take it from me, but other than that, I'm not really doing it for anybody. But anyway, this toolable fanny pack is also going to have a matching tooled belt that it can detach from, and that way you can use the belt as a belt, or you can use it as just your fanny pack's strap. So, all that being said, down to the leather we go. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is my swivel knifing. Okay, so when I swivel cut something like this, I usually, the rule of thumb is you're going to do the things that, if you look at it as the 3D image it's going to be, the things that are closest to you get done first. So on this instance, what sits on top of everything else is the flowers. All right, and the very first thing I'm going to do is my flower centers. All right, what you normally do with one of those, or what I do, is I use my flower center stamp, which this is just a what's it called, the 12 stamp or 12 seed flower center. I'm going to put it in the middle of each of these flowers, and then that way I'll do that before I start swivel cutting, and I'll know where my swivel cuts start. All right. So there's one. There's one. And there's one. Okay, now I can start swivel cutting. I just dropped my swivel knife just a second ago, so it's good to go, ready to go. Now, when I swivel cut a flower, just like I said just a second ago, I'm going to do what's closest to me first. So every flower that's drawn for the leathercraft generally has one petal that's on top of all the other petals, and then they usually stair step down from there. So this one's on top of this one's on top of that one. Okay, and then if we went the other way, this one's on top of this one, and this one's on top of this one. Then all of them are on top of this one. That's the lowest one. That's the last one I'm going to do. So I will swivel cut this one, and then this one, and then this one, and then this one, and then this one. All right? The reason that you just start with what's closest to you and what's highest up is because then when you don't accidentally have overcut lines, I mean, as long as you're careful, of course, but you don't accidentally have overcut lines where you are doing one of the lower ones and you accidentally cut into one of the higher ones. Okay, and this is not a tooling instructional video per se. I mean, I'm just kind of talking as I go. People say they like hearing all the little tips and stuff that I have to say while I do this. And again, if you already know how to swivel knife and you're good at it and you don't need any help with it, feel free to watch the next video where we'll actually the second video on this will be us doing some color and stuff like that. Alright, so I'm going to swivel cut this one flower out, and then I'll pause the camera and I will swivel cut my other 3 flowers. So I'm going in the manner I said I would. I did that one petal, and now I'm going down the little stair step of petals down the other side of the flower, trying to leave it at an angle that you can see it too. Normally my hand is wrapped all around, and it's pretty crazy looking. Now I will say this: the first time I ever actually picked up a swivel knife in front of another leather worker, his name's David Smith, and if you're involved in guilds, you probably know his name. He's been very big in guilds for many years. But anyway, old Dave Smith up in Fort Worth, him and George Hirsch were standing in front of me at the Hidecrafter store. And one of the two of them, I don't remember which one, handed me a swivel knife and said, "Let's see what you got." So I picked it up and I started cutting. And David was like, "Oh, you're left-handed." I looked at him all confused. I was like, no, I'm not. And actually, I'm sorry, that's not about the swivel knife. That's about the tooling. When I tool, I hold my stamp in my right hand and my maul in my left hand. I'm like this. And apparently a lot of people do it the other way. And yeah, so, oh well. Once he told me that, I thought, well, maybe I'll try switching hands and see if I'm any better at this, you know. And the answer to that was no. No, I was not. So I just stuck with what I knew. Anyway, this flower is cut out. I'm going to cut out the other 2. When we come back, I'll show you where I start on my scroll work with all that cutting. Alright, so I got my 3 flowers swivel knifed in. Now I'm going to start working on all the scrolls. Okay? There's not really anywhere special I would start or stop or whatever. My biggest thing is, when I'm doing scrolls like this, I always start out here at the end of the leaf or vine or whatever you want to call it, and I work my way back to where it joins all the other scroll work. That way I can kind of taper off that cut, and at the very end of it I lift my knife as I'm still cutting so that the line fades out and it doesn't just abruptly stop. Okay? So, got a customer. Gonna have to pause the video, guys. Anyway, I'm gonna keep swivel cutting all these in, and that'll be that. Alright, folks, so it took me longer than usual to swivel knife this out. We had some customers come in, and I decided to go home and actually sleep for a night, you know, stuff like that. So I'm back at it early this morning, and we have it all nice and swivel cut. I did put it in a plastic baggie overnight so that it would stay, keep its moisture content. It's very important to, if you let it dry out, it'll be tougher to tool later. So I do try to put it in a plastic baggie, and if I'm going to leave it more than like a day, then I'll even put it in the refrigerator, and that will help keep it from molding too quickly. Depending on your humidity and stuff like that, this stuff could mold very, very quickly, or it could take a week or whatever. Anyway, so what we're going to do here is I'm going to tool out an entire flower. Just one, because again, you know, the other 2, you don't have to watch me do 3 to know how I did it once. So anyway, generally though, I've got 3 flowers here. I would do 1 tool on all 3 of them, then move to the next tool and do all 3 of them. Obviously that saves time. So anyway, but we're not about saving time, we're about showing you how to do it, or how I do it. So, the next stamp I'm going to use is called a center shader. Okay, I've got a little 2-minute tool tip on each one of these tools. This one was made by Clay Miller. He makes one different than anyone else I have ever seen, and I really, really like it. The standard center shader, I'm looking for it in my tools here so I can show it to you. There it is. Standard center shader, like this one made by Barry King here. It's the lines on it run the length of it. The lines on this one run the width of it, and I really like it. But basically, see, there's like a little half moon shape on this end of this one and this end of this one. We're going to put that little half moon shape right up against the seeds that we formed earlier, and we'll give it a little hit as we walk it around the project, okay? And what a center shader does is a flower is cone shaped, right? A flower comes down and into a cone shape down to its stem. The center shader basically gives it that illusion by shading the center. And I guess it's not just an illusion, it actually does press down that area. But that's what it's all about, is creating that cone shape, or at least the look of it. Okay, so there we are. Now it's going down into that cone. All right, now I'm going to use a thumbprint next. Thumbprints come in all shapes and sizes. This is one of the larger ones I have because this is a pretty decent sized flower. This one has I guess horizontal lines on it. They run the sideways, side to side. They also make them with vertical lines that, you know, go the length of it. Checkered, smooth, I mean, you name it, they make it. This one's Berry King. As a matter of fact, most of these tools are Berry King, except for a couple of Clay Millers. But there are other tool makers out there that have tools like this, to include Craft Tool and Craft Tool Pro type tools. So when I use this thumbprint, I'm going to put it in one of the scallops of this flower, or this petal, and I'm going to lean it back. I want to lean it towards the outside because I don't want to see the entire shape of the tool. I just want to see the impression of about half of it. Okay, so I'm going to lean it. I'm going to put it where just inside the scallop here, and it's very important the other end of the tool needs to point directly at the center of the flower. So I'm going to point it directly at the center of the flower. I'm going to lean it back towards the edge of the flower and give it a hit. Okay, and there's what we're looking at right there. Where did it go? There it is. Okay, so there's what we're looking at. Now, it looks kind of dorky when you just do one, but if I do an entire petal, and again, I'm leaning it back. I don't want to see the entire tool. I want it to fade out. Okay, and one of the impressive things you can do when tooling flowers to make them look really cool is to have what I would refer to as the ridge, okay? Which flower has, I'm trying to see on my tiny screen here. Okay, so that means that the flower, there's deep indentions going out into the petals, but then it has a ridge where this area right here is higher than the center and higher than the edge. So like a horn shape or a flower does. It kind of folds, the petals fold back. They come up out of a cone, then they fold back at the end. All right. So I'm going to keep going around the flower doing my thumb printing. Okay. And again, I want to make sure that the other end of this tool points directly at the center of the flower at all times. Otherwise, you will lose your flow of the... how do I even... I'm not an artist, so I don't know the right words and terms for this. But anyway, you lose your flow, and it doesn't look right, and it doesn't look natural, okay? So, and I mean, this is 6 to 7 ounce leather I'm using here, so I mean, I'm giving it a good whack. I'm sure you can hear it, and really going to town on it here. And that way I get a nice, deep, crisp impression. Alright, looks pretty badass once you get it all done, right? So, I have now done my thumbprint. So the next thing I can do is I will bevel the petals of this flower, okay? Now, every flower, just like how we talked about with the swivel knife, every flower has the high petal and the low petal. I'm going to bevel this in the exact same manner as I did the swivel cutting. I'm going to start with my high petal, and work my way down to the low petal, okay? I realized that when beginning tooling, one of the most difficult things is when you're beveling, you don't know which side of the line to bevel. So you look at it as if it's a 3D object, okay, and then you look at what would be the highest point, okay, and you bevel the outside of that because you're pushing down the background or what's behind it, okay? So, that being said, I've got a large beveler here, and I'm going to do the relatively straight lines of the flower petal with the larger beveler, and then I'll change over to a smaller beveler to do my all the scallops and, you know, the hard to reach stuff. Okay. When I'm tooling, I generally, I don't know if I said this out loud earlier, but I generally will do all of my flowers and leaves and then go back and do all my scroll work. Make sure I'm still on camera here. Alright, need to start out with my highest one like we talked about. Now I'm going around the scallops. I traded out, this is kind of a medium-sized beveler, I guess. I've got a smaller one here in case I get into some real tight areas. But generally, I can walk this little medium-sized beveler around. I am using checkered bevelers. I really like checkered tools as opposed to smooth. It is a personal preference. Everybody, you know, has their what they prefer, and well, this is what I prefer. So I'm not going to say that anybody's right or wrong to use checkered versus smooth versus lined versus whatever. Everybody's got their style. Here's mine. Alright, on that one I need to use a smaller beveler. The scallops are getting pretty tight on it. Alright, so I've gotten down here to the lowest petal. Now it's time to go back here and work the other side of the flower down to the lowest petal. Okay? Make sure I'm still on video here. Alright, working our way around. People ask me too, beginners have an issue with what's called walking the tool, which is where I'm just constantly in a motion of moving the tool and hitting it. It's something you got to practice, something you got to build up to. But one of the things that I do to help me do it is to keep my pinky flat on the leather. Okay, and then the tool is not actually, it's just barely touching the surface of the leather. And then when I hit it, that pinky kind of helps it bounce back up, I guess you can say, so that it can move. And then I move it about a third of the width of the tool before I hit it again. Okay, smooth beveling is more than just hit the tool once, move it the entire width of the tool, and then hit it again. You've got to overlap your strikes, and then that will give you smoother beveling, and you won't have what's called tool marks, which is where you can see each individual place that you hit the tool. Okay? Alright, the last thing I'm going to use on this flower is I'm going to use a veiner, okay? And I'm going to get in here. Every one of these petals goes down into the flower center, but it just kind of meshes up down there. There's no definitive stop to the bottom of the petal. So I'm going to use this veiner. I'm going to put it right up against the seeds in one of the edges of the petal and give it a little wacky whack. And I'll do a couple of these and then I'll show you what it looks like. And you're going to use it kind of to follow the curvature of the petal. And it's one of those details, it doesn't make a huge difference, but it makes enough difference that, you know, it should be added. So on this side of the flower, I have used it. On this side, I have not. So hopefully you can see that there. But I'm a big proponent that every little detail you do adds up to one big completed project. And so if you skip all the little details, you'll have something a lot more plain than if you'd have just gone ahead and, you know, put the extra effort into it. So the only thing left to do on this is going to be the decorative swivel knife cuts, which I loathe. I'm not very good at them. But anyway, that'll come later on because I'll do decorative swivel cuts on the whole thing at once. So I'm going to turn the camera off while I tool out a couple of more flowers here. Alright, so we got 3 flowers all tooled and pretty. So the next thing I usually do is I'll go back to my thumbprint or a pear shader. A lot of the time I really like the classic look of a pear shader, and I'm pretty good with one. Again, I use a checkered one. But on the lid, I used a thumbprint, and on the 2-minute tooltip video I did on it, I used a thumbprint. So, of course, I need to make everything match. So I am going to go along in the scrolls and use my thumbprint, okay? And I'll show you on this finished one here where all that is just basically right at the ends of the leaves. I do the same as I did on the flower petal. I put it out there towards the end. I lean it back so I don't see the entire impression of the tool, and I give it a whack. This is where having multiple sizes of thumbprints can help out because you know, not all these leaves are going to be the same. Excuse me. Sorry about that. But also every thumbprint, or most thumbprints, have 2 ends to them, a narrow and a wide. So on the smaller ones, on this one, I know all I'm going to do is flip this sucker around and use the smaller side. Okay? So, show you what that looks like on a few of these, and then, yeah, leave you to it. So I am going to, with the length of the tool, just kind of follow the flow of the scroll, okay? Kind of like how it was important to always point it towards the center here. Well, you want it to kind of go with the flow of the vines too, okay? You don't want to have one that's all womper-jawed and cocked out like that on a leaf that is flowing this direction. So just like that, but I'm going to do it all the way through all the scroll work. Okay, when I come back, we'll start beveling. Alright, so I got all the thumbprints done. I did watch for areas where you can tell that the flower, like this is not a leaf right here. Well, hang on, where am I? Yeah, this is not a leaf right here. This is the stem of the flower. So I'm going to do different stuff to it here in a little bit. Okay, now, when I start beveling, this is a Don Gonzales pattern right here. So Don is known for having a lot of these areas where the leaf turns back and you can see the underside here and everything. It's a really neat dynamic thing to put in there. But when I start beveling, I start with those. Okay, and I can either grab, I've got fancy round checkered bevelers, or I can just grab a really, really small regular beveler. And I will do just the insides of those real quick, just to kind of knock them out and get them out of the way. Now, how I do them is, let's see if I'm going to do this one right here. Let me see if I can zoom in anymore. Nope, that's it. So, what I'm going to do first is this one inside line. Okay, and I am using my little fancy round checkered beveler. It's just so perfect for this application. I could use the little straight one and get the same effect, but for some reason I just really like doing it with this round one. Alright, so I do that line first. Where are we at? Okay. I do that line first. Now I'm going to go back in here and do that inside line to depress where it's just sitting on top of the background. Okay? Again, you always bevel the things that are closest to you first, okay? And this is the furthest part away. So now I have a very dimensional look there with the different layers. Once I do some backgrounding in that little bitty space there, it's going to look really, really nice. And it'll look like one of those. Okay, so I do all those first, and then I take just my regular old bevelers, and anywhere that I have a tight radius like that right there, I'll go ahead and bevel those areas first. Alright, and then I'll go back with a larger beveler and do all the main parts. And again, you have to really look at this and decide what's on top, what's on bottom, so that you know which side of a line to bevel. This stem right here is on top of this leaf, which is on top of this leaf, which is on top of this leaf. So I'll bevel this side of this line, this side of this line, this side of this line, and then of course I'll bevel down the outside of the pattern also. So you just have to pay attention to what looks like it's on top. And then that way you'll know which ones to bevel, or which side of the lines to bevel on. Okay? So, yeah. If you're paying attention to it and you're really looking at it like it's a 3D object, which it will be when you're done, it'll be very evident which sides of the lines to bevel. You always bevel the side that you want to push back. Okay? So, yeah. Alright, so I'm going to bevel this thing, and it's going to take me a while. I may be wearing a different shirt by the time you see me on the next part of the video. I'm a very slow tooler. There's people that'll knock this out in no time, and kudos to them. But I'm a very slow tooler, as you can tell from having to watch me. Alright folks, so here we are, all beveled up. I got my lid piece here that I've already done the next step, which is the backgrounding. I really like the backgrounding. I don't know why, it's kind of my favorite part of tooling. Maybe it's because the beveling is finally all done. But anyway, I've got a couple of backgrounders here. I had these specially made by Clay Miller. And what I did is I took an a Tandy A98 stamp. Hang on, I got the wrong stamp in my hand here. There we go. I took a Tandy A98 stamp and I handed it to Clay Miller and asked him to make me a set. And he did. He made me a 6-piece set where the A98 was one of the middle sizes. And I got some smaller and some larger. And anyway, and they all have matching checkering. Because if you have a bunch of craft tools from different eras, genres, years, whatever you want to call it, a lot of the time the checkering won't match up on all of them. And I don't like to do bar grounding. It's just, again, my personal preference. I'm not a bar grounder. I like to use checkered matting tools. But it was really hard to do when none of my matting tools matched. You know, and as I try to refine my work more and more with every piece, you know, having large checkering over here and small checkering over here, like, that's just not going to work for me. So, anyway, my backgrounding, real simple. I just kind of go along and I fill in the areas that need to be filled in. And what it really makes it pop. It makes it where you can easily see the pattern and everything. I will tell you this though. So this one is teeny tiny and really sharp. So I use it in areas like this right here. Okay, it's where this stem right here and this stem right here are coming together. There's a very tight little V right there. And to have a tool that has such a tight little point on it is just absolutely amazing, because you can really get in there, and that just cleans it up so much to get a background tool, or you can use a triangle shaped beveler, anything you want really. But that little V right there, it really, again, it's one of those tiny little details that some people may never even notice, but all those little details add up to a great finished product. Okay, so yeah, so I'm gonna go through here and background all this and do my tiny little V's and stuff. And when I come back, we'll do decorative cutting and some other specialized beveling. Alright, so all the backgrounding is done. Alright, so now we're going to move on to, I said, specialty beveling. I like to use what is called a low angle beveler and go around the outside, around the outside, around the outside. Okay, so this, when you bevel something, you're left with what's called the halo. Okay, and the halo is this area right here where you can tell that the beveling stopped and the normal leather began again. Okay, and if you use something like a low angle beveler, then you can take that away, and it basically depresses it further out, and what you're left with is this kind of result, where it actually looks like this tooling is sitting more just on top of the leather as opposed to carved out of it. Okay, so this is a low angle beveler. This one's from Barry King, and in comparison, here it is against my steep angle beveler, just to show you. It's got a lot less angle to it, thus the name low angle. Alright, so we'll go around this little piece right here and I'll show you the difference. I'll go halfway around it so you can see. And I only do this on the outside areas, okay? I don't do it in here in the leaves and all that, just around the outside so that the whole picture looks like it's sitting down on top of the leather. So here I have depressed the leather more and it pushed out. It didn't get rid of the halo, it pushed it out further and smoothed it out more so that you don't see it. So unlike the halo that is always on my head, this one can go away. Haha. So anyway, I'm going to go around this entire perimeter with this thing, and when I come back we'll do the decorative swivel cuts, and then it's time to let this thing dry so that we can do some coloring. Alright, got that all taken care of. Went all the way around the perimeter of it there, and now it doesn't have the halo all around it like it did. Okay, so I forgot a very important stamp. This is called a continuous mule's foot. Okay, and it's called that because it's like regular mule's foot, except there's several of them stacked. This is actually a right and a left one. See how they curve towards each other? They look like a horn of plenty. Anyway, I don't use these very often. I do have one that's about the same size but straight. I normally use it quite a bit, but I'm just kind of, you know, trying to knock the dust off some of these dadgum tools. And yeah, so what I'm gonna do is areas where a lot of the vines and leaves all come together, that's where you want to use this thing. Okay, and it gives it some nice dimension. Okay, not dementia, dimension. Okay, so like right here, give it a little whack. See that little accent it puts on there? It's nice. Just kind of add something to it. All right, and then when you do that, you know, 20, 30 times going around it in all the big areas. I don't do it at every joint because, well, that would be way too many, and it would just look like this tool all over the dadgum thing all day. But you know, every couple, I'll throw one down. Yeah, and then where it starts to curve the other way, because it, you know, it's a interweaving path there. Where it starts to curve the other way, that's when I'll grab the other one. But again, I normally just use a straight one. If I need to really put it on an angle, I'll lean it one way or the other and just get, it'll look like it's curved like this. But like I said, I've got some of these tools I never ever use, and why not use them once in a while? I get lots of people when I tell them, oh, I don't ever use that stamp. They're like, well, then send it to me. No. Then I'll have a hole in my toolbox. So, yeah, kind of like that. I'll finish this out, and then again, we're going to do decorative swivel cuts in just a moment. Alright, I should have just kept recording because I only had like 4 more to do anyway. So, decorative swivel cuts. I have been, what's the opposite of looking forward to? Dreading. I've been dreading this since the beginning of this video. I don't like to show people decorative swivel cuts because I suck at them, okay? Not only do you have to have mad crazy control of your swivel knife, you have to have a really good imagination. I have mad crazy control, I have terrible imagination, alright? So, yeah. On flowers, my swivel cuts are so basic, it's not even funny. But if I don't put them on there, then it'll look plain. So, see the difference in those two flowers? Swivel cuts, no swivel cuts. Plain, not so plain. Alright? So, very basic for me. I do one big one down the center, I make it nice and deep, and then I do a couple of shorter ones off to the side. Just like the other tools, if you want it to flow nicely, then it has to point exactly towards the middle of the flower. And of course, as I'm saying that, I screwed up that very last one. It doesn't point towards the middle of the flower, and it totally throws off the flow. Now, 99% of the people out there won't notice this, but the other 1%, those are the ones I'm worried about. Okay? So, yeah. That's what I do on flowers. Now let me show you the very, very basic thing I do on the actual vines and stuff. Alright, so let's say we got this little petal right here of a stem, leaf, whatever you want to call it. There's two that I have a go-to for. One of them is a tiny little cut like that, and then a longer cut like this. See? Two cuts. The other one is just kind of something in between those two, but just one cut. Like that. Right there. Okay? And I will do that on just about every single one of these leaf ends or vine ends or whatever you want to call them. And when I come back, I think that's it. I'll take a picture of it. Anytime you're tooling something and you're like, man, what's missing? Take a picture of it and then look at the picture. I promise you, you will see something you didn't see in person. I don't know what it is about it. I noticed it back when I was posting a lot of stuff on Instagram. As soon as I put it on Instagram, I'd be like, damn, I forgot that part. But yeah, so now I just take a picture of it and look at the picture and I instantly see what I missed. Alright guys, so that is it on tooling the fanny pack. That's the base of it, and the lid of it are done. Again, I did the lid before the video just to show, you know, what it'll end up looking like. There's also a belt, matching belt, but it's tooled the exact same way, so I'm not going to bore you to death with another hour and a half of that. Next video will be on all the coloring I'm going to do on this. I'm going to do a lot. I've got some plans for this one. This is going to be a, I don't want to say the word extensive video series, but it's going to be more than, hey, now let's sew it together and be done. So anyway, until next time, I'm Aaron Heiser, Maker's Leather Supply. Have a great day.